Hi everyone. I wanted to give a quick update in video 4 here of the results I've seen for the past 6 months or so of the changes I've made within the crawl space. We'll go back in and look a couple of things that I had changed. One, I did seal all the vents. To include, I went back and took the vent fan that I had had in the wall out and replaced it with the foam insulation just like I had done with all the other vents. Part of the reason I did that is I was noticing that the humidity and temperature was still clocking or tracking too close to what was happening outside. And I wanted to make sure I was eliminating anything. And this was also a test just to make sure, am I going to have any issues with the vent fan in place? Some people say to put it in, some say take it out. So this was also an experiment to see what was going to happen when I took it out. The other thing that I've been trying to track, and I had shown in the previous video, is the water leakage or the gathering of the water in the crawl space in this section underneath the house. As I ended up finding out where it was coming from. After going under the house several nights when it had rained in different times, there is actually a main sewer line that goes to the septic tank, which is in this lower corner of the picture. And so between the door and the gas line coming in, there's a main pipe coming out to the sewer tank. So I need to dig that up, put some hydraulic cement around it and see if I can seal it to stop the water from seeping. Because when I was under the house, I could literally watch the water flow from this spot down to the lower section of the crawl space. And then I went up and crawled up to the top part of the crawl space as well and saw no water coming from any of the areas on this side, because I thought maybe it was off of one of the drain pipes. But I'm pretty confident that I've got it nailed down to this location, and we'll see if the hydraulic cement solves the problem. The other challenge I'm running into is the crawl space door. So in this picture, the door is not fully closed. I've just come inside, and the only way to close it is to grab the bottom of the frame and pull it in. But even with it closed, there is space above and below the door, and then even seeping in with the door up against this piece of wood. So I need to come back and either find a better way to seal the door, putting insulation on the door and having it cover up around the sides, or just to replace the door altogether, which I would prefer to do so the sheathing that's around the bottom of the door is already coming off anyway and needs to be replaced. So if you look at the results, I went in and took measurements today and still continuing to see positive improvements. As I looked at Zone 1, it did drop lower down to about 10% from where it had been, and Zone 2 had dropped down to 11%. Now, I want to take into account that Zone 1 is closer to the dehumidifier, and I was already seeing better results there than in Zone 2. The other is the outside temperature and humidity today is much lower than what we had been seeing. So in August, a lot of the measurements for relative humidity were in the 85 up to a peak of 92% humidity. Today, and we haven't had rain in several days, it was down to 41% outside. Inside, it stayed fairly consistent around 64%. Using my probe in Zone 1, it did drop a little bit down to 56%. Occasionally the probe gives a little bit of variation, but went ahead and recorded the peak after I let it sit for about 2 minutes, watching the changes on the humidity. And the temperature inside is staying fairly consistent. If you go and look at the chart, today the overall humidity, again, staying consistent, a little bit of a drop in Zone 2, and then you can see the drop outside from 84% to 41%. And the temperature continues to track fairly close to the outside temperature. There are some different days that, depending on how the probe works, I'm getting slightly different temperature readings. It is a little bit warmer inside the crawl space than it was outside. Keeping in mind, too, that temperature that I took inside the crawl space is near Zone 1, is also near the dehumidifier. So I do have heat and exhaust coming off of the dehumidifier as it's drying the air. So that could account for a little bit higher temperature inside near the door versus what is on the outside. Yet overall, still very positive results of going from, in Zone 2 up close to 20% wood moisture down to 11%. And in Zone 1 dropping from 14 to 10%. So what I'm going to do next is work on sealing the penetration with that hydraulic cement around the sewer line and see if I can stop that water from coming in. I do need to pull an electrical line for a permanent placement of the dehumidifier. It is closer into zone 1 and not in the center. I'd like to come in. I just haven't gotten to it. I need to either splice into one of the current electrical lines or pull a new one. And the way the breaker box is set up, it's not quite as easy for me to get in and pull a new line. I'm just concerned I don't want to drill into something that's up in the breaker box, and so I may have to hire an electrician if I pull a brand new line. But I'm also measuring some of the load on different circuits and chasing down the wires, and so easier would be to splice into the wires and put a new junction box in and provide a power outlet for the dehumidifier. But I'll play around with that. I do want to either resolve with a seal or replace the crawl space door. I do need to at some point come back and replace the vapor barrier, but very satisfied that just the dehumidifier alone is allowing me to come back in and keep the moisture low in the wood until I can get to the point that I do the replacement on the vapor barrier. So hope this is helpful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or drop me notes, and I'll be glad to come back in and answer your questions as best as I can. Thanks and have a great day.